physics to understand how to fly, those have always existed. The internet has always, the possibility of the internet has always existed. And I want you to think about this. This is a deeper statement than it typically comes across. Things that do not yet exist already exist. We're just not thinking the right ways yet. We just haven't put them all together yet. You can create unbelievable things in life that no one understands the existence of yet. They already exist in some form. You just need to bring them about. And so that's really what this process is in some ways, is bringing about the awareness, the understanding of saying, wait a second, there are these materials around, and we can make metals out of them, and we can make electronics out of them, and we can put them together in a certain way and fly across the world. Already exist. We just have to find them. We need to think in a different way in order to find them. Okay? Typically, fantasy is associated with something's wrong. There's something wrong with you if you fantasize, if you daydream. Right? There's something wrong with you. I fantasize on a daily basis. Actually, fantasize, if you just went, I fantasize about, most people are going to finish that sentence actually in a sexual way. Right? In our culture? Because that's where our minds go. Like, no, it's sexual, so it's bad, or it's childlike, so it's bad. That's kind of where we go in our culture. The best inventors of all time, the people who have changed the world the most, are the best at fantasizing. They're the people that change this planet. Think about Gandhi. Think about like anyone who dreams of a better future comes up with crazy ideas. They fantasize. And they fantasize enough that they actually start believing their own fantasies. And when they start believing their own fantasies enough, they start working towards them. But listen, if fear is attached to your goals right now, if fear is the strongest emotion attached to your goals, guess what you're not going to reach? Your goals. I'm going to explain that again in a little bit here. Maybe I'll do it after the first.
Can you say that sentence again? Sorry.
If fear is the strongest emotion, the most prevalent emotion attached to your goals, you will never accomplish your goals. Because fear is a powerful motivator to move away from something. You need to learn, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more later. You need to learn to attach other emotions to your goals. And as soon as you attach those other emotions to your goals, and they're strong enough, you will automatically start working towards them. Again, I'm not going to explain that right now. There's a lot more to that. There's a quote that I really like by, who is it? John Maxwell. Is change is inevitable, growth is intentional. Change is inevitable, growth is intentional. What I take that to mean is that we will all get old, we will all start to change physically, our cells will change how they interact with each other. Our relationships will change over a lifetime. And yet, there are many 70, 80, 90-year-old, 110-year-old individuals out there who are scared and lonely and immature and do have no wisdom. All this life experience and no wisdom. That is sad to me. Because the only difference between them and a 30 or 40-year-old who has a crazy amount of wisdom is intentionality. It's intentionality. So the one challenge is be intentional about everything this year. Learn to put intentionality into your life. Okay? Be intentional. As you are intentional, you will grow instead of simply change. You will be able to take that experience and do something with it. Okay. So you've heard Ken talk about this, you've heard me talk about this, I'm sure you've heard like 100 people talk about this. Your why. Discover your why. What does that mean to you guys right now? I just want an understanding of where you guys are at with that. What is your why? When people talk about that, what are they talking about?
My why is to help my mom, help
Okay.
my family.
Okay. So what is a why? What is that?
Your, I guess it kind of is your goal.
Okay. So it's tied to goals,
Yeah.
It's what drives you to
It
reach
drives
your
you,
goal.
yeah.
motivation. Okay.
My wife's to be financially free,
Okay.
especially at an elderly age. And I'm driven by it every day because I deal with people that, for lack of a better term, don't have a pot to piss in. And they come into my office and it's government supported. And if I try to upsell them on anything, they have no money. I do not want to be that. So I see my why every morning. I wake up, I live it.
Yeah.
So it's internal.
Yeah. So people see, you're talking about,
Seniors in general.
well, and our mouth health in general too, specifically in that circumstance, right?
Yeah.
Of going, so you're gonna have to live with all this pain or all this discomfort or without being able to eat or without being able to whatever because you don't have the money to do it.
So in our next, when we get old, there's gonna be new inventions, new things. I wanna be able to provide that to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And no matter what it is, if it's
Yeah.
good for me, I can take advantage of it. It's good for me and my family. Okay. A word that comes to me most often when I think about why is purpose. What's my purpose in this? Because purpose is a little bit deeper than just goals. Not the way we're thinking about goals. We're thinking about goals on a deeper level, but purpose has a different connotation, right? It's like, what was I made to do? Why am I here? Does that make sense? This is what I want to work towards a little bit, for the next little bit. And I've got an activity that I'm going to give you. I want to read a couple of just notes that I took about this and help you think about this. So some of these ideas are directly coming from an article called The Common Denominator of Success. It's an article that you will be given this year. Listen to this quote. Successful people have formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. Successful people have formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do.
They're going to a mastermind session like this?
Like spend money, a decent chunk of money, investing in yourself and taking time out of your family and your schedule and your job to come and work on yourself. Failures don't do that. I'm going to read that one more time. Successful people have formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. So listen, you've got to create a habit of investing in yourself. Really, that's what this year is, right? It's about a consistent basis of investing in yourself instead of just going to an event and then being done with it, as we've heard this morning a few times.
To share a couple other, so people can maybe relate to that comment a bit better, in terms that,
Yeah.
In Joanne's world, or in my world as a real estate agent, the success ratio of realtors is very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
And
How many deals does the average realtor do?
I don't know what the average, in Edmonton, it was like 1.5
1.5 deals a year.
a year.
That's the average.
Wow. Okay. Now, it's not a whole lot more than that, because in Almont, for example, there's, in our office here in Almont, there's 10 agents. One agent might do 1 or 2 deals a year.
Yep.
Another agent, maybe 2 or 3 deals. By far, they're less than 10 deals a year, by far. All of them, with the exception of 2.
Yep.
That's
So they live on
Joanne's.
something else, I guess.
Sorry?
They live on something else.
Yep. Yeah, they have to.
Really? eh?
Which means most realtors are part-time realtors.
Yeah. And the big difference that I saw in Joanne's success was that exact statement, is that she is willing to do what others are not willing to do, which is uncomfortable. Making those cold calls, doing the contacts, or following up. And that's the biggest difference. I've never seen such a blatantly obvious example as her.
My brother's a real estate agent as well. And every once in a while we talk about this, and he said, Mark, so many people come to me and say, oh, I wish I could be a realtor, just make money for doing nothing. He seriously has those comments to his face, okay? He says, and every time in my head I'm going, you can feel free to do it. You can feel free to give up your weekends and your evenings and structure and what people think are security about your job, right? No one's going to give up those things. That's why no one's making the money. That's why even real estate agents aren't making the money typically. But there are a few who are doing those things. And it's not just about giving up evenings and weekends. You don't have to and make a lot of money. Having said that, you need to make choices, form habits of doing things that the average people are not willing to do.
So coming back to, because most people are real estate investors, what is it that to be a successful real estate investor, do you have to do? Cold calling, door knocking, sales, asking for the sale, asking for the investment, all the things that we are extremely uncomfortable with because we don't like to hear the word no. We don't like rejection.
Yeah. Learning to be comfortable with money and the idea of having lots of it. Talking about money with our family members.
So these are all things that we have to learn to overcome.
Yeah. So habits, this is one way to understand habits. A habit is simply a form of momentum. So bad habits are habits that take your momentum away from your goals. Good habits are simply momentum that work towards your goals. That's a really simple understanding of what a habit is. Just a routine, a momentum builder in your life that's either taking you towards or away from your goals. So how do successful people form these habits? Again, these are a few quotes from that article. Successful people are motivated by their desire for pleasing results. Successful people are motivated by their desire for pleasing results. Failures are motivated by their desire for pleasing methods. So let's fill that out a little bit more. Why are we talking about goals? Why are we talking about why? Why are we talking about purpose? Because if we start focusing on that, and that becomes so big in our lives that it's what motivates us, then we will do the interim stuff to get there. Does that make sense? If this is not big enough in our lives, then we will always be motivated by whether I want to or not to. Whether it's comfortable or not. So the difference between success and failure towards our goals is how attached we can get for the end result, for the growth, for whatever the why is for us. Okay? Legitimately, if we can get attached to that enough, greater than just on the methods, then we will succeed every time. Okay? Joanne is strong in this area, and which is why she's successful. So, told you I was going to talk about procrastination, right? Here's a quote for you. Procrastination is when, for the moment, your desire for pleasing methods is greater than your desire for pleasing results. Here's your goal. Here's your purpose. Here's your why. Okay? If this is the number one role that's always playing in your brain, if this is the number one motivator, then you simply walk that direction. Okay? And the stuff in the middle it's not a big deal anymore. However, if talking to strangers about money, if this is stronger, if this is number one, then you won't do it. That's called procrastination. Now, procrastination does go deeper than that, and we'll get into a deeper discussion of that. But at its most basic level, that's what procrastination is. It's simply for the time being, this becomes stronger than this. I'm going to give you a really simple example, because when we talk about these in these broad areas, we're like, oh, but that's so hard. We're going to have to do so much to get there. No, this happens every day in our lives. How many of you tied your shoes today? Some of you have pull-outs. That's okay. Okay, do you remember, have you ever watched a child that's learning to tie shoes? Is it easy or difficult?
Difficult.
Is it frustrating or fun?
They cry.
And why?
Never know how to tie
I was
tie them. Tie them for me.
Please do it for me. I'm going to do it, right? Now, what is it that gets people to tie their shoes eventually? I'll tell you what it is for my kids. It's called the playground. And if I give my son a choice, my 5-year-old, when I say, buddy, you've got a choice between tying your shoes or going to the play, or not tying your shoes or going to the playground. As soon as I word it that way, as soon as his focus is taken away from the horror of spending, and legitimately it's a task for the kid, okay? It takes 5 or 10 minutes to tie his shoes, right? But the horror of tying his shoes, as soon as his focus is put on playground, it switches, okay? Even more so. They just developed, so my 2 kids just became friends with these other 2 kids in the neighborhood. They're all of a sudden best friends, right? They don't want to spend any time alone. My kids wait. The moment these kids come home from school, they're knocking on the door, okay? So throughout the day, my son will have a really hard time tying his shoes. Come 3 o'clock or whatever time it is that they come home, you go, hey, Riley just got home. Now he doesn't even talk about tying his shoes. It's not even a concern for him. He just puts them on, ties them up, and goes. Why is it not a big deal? Because this is the focus. Does that make sense? Now here's a cool thing. Here's a really cool thing, and tying your shoes is a really good example of it. At one time, tying your shoes was the most horrible thing you could think of in life. Okay? Because it took potentially 10 minutes away from playing. Okay? At one time. And it was hard. And you didn't understand it. It was difficult. It was frustrating. It brought up shame and other things. How many of you thought at all about tying your shoes this morning? It was not even a thought. Why? It's become a habit. I'm going to go back to something I read before. Successful people have formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do, that don't want to do, won't do. If you do the things that are hard, if you tie your shoes enough times, it becomes extremely easy. In fact, if you tie your shoes enough times, it becomes something that you don't even have to think about. You can have your focus on something else. I'll give you another example. I remember driving. Initially, when I started driving, it was a stressful, difficult thing. I was watching in all these directions and watching my gauges and worrying about the lines on the road and which pedal do I use now? And I'm on a hill, so now when I shift into first, am I going to actually get up or am I going to stall? Like all these things I'm thinking about, okay? And my mom telling me that I'm doing everything wrong at the same time, okay? It was a stressful thing. Now I can do 100 things while I'm driving and still get to the destination just fine. Why? It's become subconscious. It's become a habit. It's become a routine. It's become part of my day that gets me to where I actually want to be. So, it's not that the people who are successful love tying their shoes. If I asked you to, well, I'll ask you, who really enjoyed tying your shoes this morning? That's almost a nonsensical question, right? is it's not about liking or not liking. It's just like you do it and you move on with your day, right? Same with driving. If you ask most people, do you really like driving? Most people will be like, you do it. Now, some people love driving. My brother loves driving, right? Loves being in a vehicle. Maybe it depends on the vehicle you're driving. But habits are simply things that used to be difficult on some level, used to be horrendous and terrifying and worthy of crying and whining for 10 minutes, and they become part of your subconscious behavior. So I want you to pick the things that are hard for you. Think about cold calling. Think about talking about sales, talking about money, talking about whatever. Those things, this is a complete promise, commitment to you, that if you do them enough, with this in mind, you focus on your goal, not the method, they will become tying your shoes. And you'll start doing it. I know real estate agents, I've worked with real estate agents before, who make 50 calls every morning, 50 cold calls every morning. They don't start anything else in their day until they've made 50 phone calls. And when I say 50 phone calls, I don't mean that they dial the phone 50 times. I'm talking about that they talk to 50 people in the morning. So if they don't get someone, they'll keep going until they find 50 people before they start their day. And when I was so I was learning cold calling. I was calling for my brother, the real estate agent. And I was doing 300 calls a day. Okay? And I stank because I sweat so much. I put lots of pit stick on those days. And yet I still reeked because I was so terrified as I was going through this process. Okay? The first day. By the end of the summer, I did this for a summer. Do you know that by the end of the summer, it wasn't a big deal to me anymore? Someone would tell me no, and I would joke around with them a little bit. There was no animosity, no fear anymore. There was this relaxed state. And if you talk to those same agents who make 50 calls every morning, you say, do you like doing that? That would be that nonsensical question. They'd be like, well, it's something you do. I get a deal out of it every day. This is part of this. It takes me to my goals. Is this making sense? Am I explaining it properly? Okay. Whenever I say, does this make sense? I'm not saying like, are you smart enough to get this? What I mean by that is, am I communicating clearly? Okay, just so you guys know. All right? Because I say that a lot, and I wonder sometimes how people are taking it. So let me repeat this again. Procrastination is when, for the moment, your desire for pleasing methods is greater than for pleasing results. If you were to bottle up all personal development, and no, that's not true. If you were to bottle up all personal development talk about goals and the purpose of goals into one statement, into one understanding, it would be this. Goals are all about focusing on this rather than focusing on that. Now, again, it's more complex than that. We'll get into it, but that's the basics. Okay, I'm going to talk about the brain a little bit, and then I'll give you a task and something that you can think on, okay? So most of you have seen me talk about the brain in some way. Really simple view of what's in my head, okay? This and this. This is your thinking brain. This is your, some call it cerebral cortex. Bob Proctor calls it your conscious mind. Okay? This is your emotional brain. I call it your limbic system. Bob Proctor calls it your subconscious mind. Okay? So don't get confused with all the wording, the jargon for it. Often when I talk about it, I use emotional brain. That's usually the way I talk about it, okay? Bob's going to say subconscious mind. And you're going to hear those terms lots in the next 12 months. Thinking brain or conscious mind. This subconscious mind, this is the master. This is dry erase. I'm gonna mess up. Okay? This is the master of the brain. This is the motivation. All motivation comes from this area of the brain. all motivation. Period. Ask any psychologist worth spit, and they'll say, this is where motivation comes from. Okay? Any doctor, any neurologist, any neuroscientist, they're all going to say motivation. That's where all motivation is formed. Because motivation is intimately tied with emotions for people. Again, really quick background. When we were running around in caves 35,000 years ago in France, drawing horses on caves,
Why'd you point me at?
well, because we were talking about it. We were talking about it the other day. We were looking at some paintings. So cave drawings, cave paintings 35,000 years ago. Because at that time, there were cave bears in Europe. Okay? They're known as cave bears. They don't exist any longer because we killed them. All of them. But at that time, as humans were developing, as we were evolving, as we were growing, this part of our brain evolved, and its purpose was to keep us safe. Because legitimately, for most of human history, we've been in danger of dying on a daily basis from wild creatures. For most of human history. So this part of our brain has developed to be very finely tuned and to take over and to move us out of trouble. And this has always been the most important part of our brain throughout human history. Until the last few hundred years. Until the last few thousand years, I should probably say. The last few thousand years, this part of our brain has become really handy. Thinking about a sewage system in a city has become very handy over the last few thousand years. Okay? It's a useful thing, right? To have a lot of people live together. And having a lot of people living together, having agriculture done on a large scale helps a lot of people live in a city, which helps some people have free time to think about planes and automobiles and inventions. And real estate investing. Or whatever. Okay? That's a really useful thing, this part of our brain. But our humans haven't evolved to a place where this is the most powerful motivator anymore. Or yet. Still, for our human brains, our emotions are the biggest motivator. And what is the biggest motivator in our limbic system, in our emotional brain?
Fear.
Fear. Fear is the most powerful motivator that gives you any reason to do anything on a daily basis. Either towards something or against something. It's fear. The reason that is because it has saved us. It's why we exist right now. It's why we're running around. It's why weak, fragile, bipedal creatures are running around still controlling the world. Because we're weak compared to any animal. There are monkeys this big that could just tear us apart. I'm not talking about claws or teeth or anything, just their strength. We're weak, fragile creatures. Okay? This is what's kept us safe. And us. But this is what's kept us safe. Okay? So fear has always been the most important thing. Now, let's put that into context now. If your goal is attached to fear, you will never get it done. Because you are fighting against hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. You're fighting against how we are built. We are built to be scared of something and to run or fight, basically. That's how we work in this world. So, what do you have?
So this isn't a challenge.
No, go ahead.
But it's just something kind of popped into my head. So I wrote down that yes, fear is our biggest motivator, and that I've been taught create goals around things that we want to accomplish, things that we want to do. I thought, I just said, well, I can use fear to help me reach my goals. Because as I was, like, you're talking about the guy at the car rental place.
Mm-hmm.
I am terrified, and I think you mentioned it too, or terrified of being in a place where I can't do what I want to do when I'm 60 or 65 or as I get older. Like I don't want to be there.
Yep.
So if that means that I have to go knock on doors in a neighborhood and introduce myself as a local real estate investor to avoid that,
Yes.
I can use that as instead of having fear holding me back from.
Yeah, that's absolutely legitimate, Brett. So it is a challenge, and it's a fantastic challenge. Okay? Because Mark's talking about fear as it's this negative thing that keeps us away from your goals. but I see how it could help me, okay? Fear will always help you short term. Fear is a short-term motivator. It's always and only a short-term motivator. So it can help you make a decision right now, today. But the problem with fear, so it's always on this side of things. The problem with fear is that if you train your brain even more to work with fear, and it's the most powerful motivator, what you're allowing to train your brain to do is that when bigger things come, that you don't see a solution in the right here and now, if it takes a week to find a solution or a month to find a solution, now you just don't do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yes, fear can be used. Fear can be used with children, right? Fear can be used to motivate children. Fear can be used to motivate a nation for a period of time. It will always fall apart. Think about dictatorships. It works for a period of time, and then it falls apart. And in the same way, if you teach your brain, or you allow your brain to always use fear as the motivation, it will fall apart. You're gonna lose your goals at some point. So does that answer that?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about. Go ahead.
Is there a difference though between fear and being scared? Fear to me is something that I'm gonna do and I'm gonna die. I'm scared of a lot of things, but I know I can, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm scared to public speak, but I push through that and I know I'm not gonna die. Right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference because scared, things that scare me motivate me because I know I can surpass them.
Yeah.
Sometimes fear in my mind, so I'm gonna go skydiving, that's not gonna
Yeah.
hold me up and I'm gonna die. That's
So
a
again-
big difference.
Excellent question. This is what's happening. So there are scales of fear, right? There's I'm scared when my son runs around with the scissors, and versus I'm scared when there's somebody with an AK-47 to my head in another country, right? There's a different spectrum. There's a spectrum. Having said that, this part of the brain is extremely primitive, okay? Extremely primitive. It's not our higher level thinking. This is our higher level thinking. So it doesn't make connections based on calculus. It makes connections based on very simple things. I'll give you an example. Has anyone had the circumstance where you like a certain food, and then at some point in time you eat it and get sick immediately after, and all of a sudden you're thrown off that food for a while? Have you had that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what that is in your head? It's all motivation. It all comes back to emotions. Okay? Basically, your primitive brain, this emotional brain, goes, I'm always on the lookout to learn what's not good for me. It doesn't know what's good for you. All it knows is if it's scary, I don't like it. That means it's not good for me. Okay? So you can love pizza. You're eating pizza, and you have one bad experience with pizza. Maybe it's whatever. So maybe it's undercooked, or maybe something else it has salmonella in it that day, and you get sick, but you associate with the pizza. It's happened with my kids. So they ate something hours before that was bad, but then when they ate the food just before they got sick, it was just the last thing they ate. Well, this part of your brain makes associations, connections. It goes, oh, I felt bad. What was close to that? And if pizza was close to that, pizza's now the enemy. So, bringing back to your example, Rick, if you have different types of fear, our brain, this part of our brain, doesn't know a big difference between a really scary thing and a little scary thing. And it will draw conclusions that bring them closer together in our brain. So even if something is a little bit scary, sometimes that can become a bigger thing in our brain quite easily, just because of where it is that day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they're closely tied. They're different, but they're closely tied. What's really important here is that we start associating different emotions for our goals. If every day you start practicing associating freedom and desire and anticipation and excitement and joy and contentment and satisfaction and surprise and all of these things, if you start associating all of those with your goal, that is the strongest long-term motivator. So the strongest short-term motivator is fear. The strongest long-term motivator are all these other emotions. Okay? And if you can start associating all of these emotions with your goal, and they become the strongest part of your brain. So if there's a, think about this. Think about like a teeter-totter. Okay? Two teeter-totters. On the left side is always fear, or let's say method, habit, and the other side is results. Okay? And same with this. This is method, this is results. If that's the case, what we need to do in our brains, and I'm oversimplifying this, but it's basically what we need to do. What we need to do is we need to take, fear is the strongest, it's the heaviest right now. What we need to make the heaviest is excitement. That's basically what we need to do. And the better you work toward having excitement and all these other emotions attached to your goals, the more you do that, the quicker you do that, the quicker you move towards your goals. Because the balance will go, zoop, and you'll start moving towards them.
May I attempt to, Daryl, can I use your why?
Sure.
Okay. So you mentioned your parents. You want to help your parents.
Okay.
Okay. Why?
Why?